Hi Year 9 and welcome to Lesson 7 of your Summer 2 term. Today's lesson is going to be on Indian Raga and looking at that as a style of music. For today's lesson you will need with you obviously your booklet, your pen. You will also need access to a computer along with this or somewhere that you can get to focus on sound. Please can I ask you that you put all distractions away because this is going to be quite an intense lesson. So for today's lesson, what I'd like us to look at is analyse and listen to a new genre of music, understand key features of Indian Raga, and to develop your own questions within this style. As has been the case with our past couple of lessons, activity 7.1 for today is your listening diary. Today's listening diary doesn't have any relevance at all to the genre that we are listening today. I just thought it'd be a really good piece for us to listen to, and today's piece is Just Dance by Lady Gaga. As always, that will be in the description below. Make sure to pause the video and come back to this as you go through. Today, please make sure that you are looking at the tempo, the structure, the dynamics, the instrumentation and the pitch. The thing I'd say is really interesting, having looked at everybody's work, is that ultimately you could do with really starting to think about anything else that you can talk about. Could you talk about the melody of this piece? Could you think about going further and telling me what is your judgment on this piece? Do you like this genre? Why or why not? That should be going into that box, and you should be writing this in full sentences. Just a reminder that structure, okay, comes under the binary, ternary, rondo, verse, chorus. Think about all those types of keywords and think which one best suits this. Pause the video now, write your ideas and make sure that you have a chance to listen to Just Dance by Lady Gaga. Your activity 7.2 today is to go through onto musictheory.net. Please make sure that you complete either one of the following tasks, so reading of notes of the treble clef, key signature identification, interval identification. But if you feel confident with all of those, please make sure to pick something that you think is relevant to the course. I can tell you now that you will not need to know scale identification, so don't bother wasting your time on that one. Pause the video now and come back to this. Give yourself at least 7 minutes on musictheory.net. Okay, moving on to what do you already know then? Activity 7.3 today, you will notice, is you looking at what do you know about India as both a continent, but also anything that you know about Indian music. What I'd like you to do is write anything that you know about the culture, geography, food, fashion, music, anything that you know. Do you know what the flag looks like? Could you even draw that in this 5 minutes? You have 5 minutes now, pause the video and write your ideas. What do you already know about Indian music and India? And there's just a couple of things. That is the Indian flag at the top, some fashion. That is in where India is in the map in relation to other countries. It is just off the Indian Ocean, and just a little bit of traditional Indian food. So looking at Indian Raga, now this is a new piece of new genre, of music that you haven't looked at. We hinted towards it with Bhangra when we looked at that in lesson 4, but today I'd like us to look at the style from North India, which is Hindustani, which is classical music from northern India. Now, similar to quite a few other styles that we have looked at, it is passed on by oral tradition. So that is a student learning and imitating and memorizing patterns of notes in this style, in this instance, raga, learned from their teacher. This is known as a master-student tradition, and most Indian classical music is based on a combination of rag, which is the melodic form, tal, which is a rhythmic form, and drone, which is sustained notes. If I talk through that too quickly, pause the video now so that you can make sure that you get this information down for activity 7.4. Moving on to looking at raga more specifically. So raga are patterns of notes that are slightly different to our Western scales that we have used. They use this raga to build their melodies through improvisation. It will often be a particular ascending and descending pattern, as you can see an example here. Which is created of a monsoon raga, and it often uses a system known as saram, which is the naming of the notes, which you can see underneath. The tonic or the ground note, okay, so the tonic is this one here, is the first note of the scale. Please make sure that you know what that is, okay, the tonic of any scale. Two other important notes for you to understand are the pa and the re. Here is just a little sound of how that rag desh will sound. Moving on to the tala. The tala or the tal is a repeating rhythm usually played by the table, which is the collection of percussion instruments. It usually has between 6 and 16 beats, and the first beat of the cycle is known as the psalm. It marks the beginning and end of improvisations, so it's often accented. The tintal is the most common tal, which remember is a rhythmic pattern. It has the following characteristics, so it has 16 beats made up of 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, and it has 4 sections that begin on the 1st, 5th, 9th and 13th beats. It's interesting to look at how those are not regular sections. A drone is a note that's held and is often used in Indian Raga. We'll be coming back to drones in a second, but they are either a repeated or a consistent note throughout a passage of music, and it often uses that same tonic of the sa that we mentioned before. Moving on to then the instrumentation. Now, this is where there's going to be quite a lot of information that you haven't seen before. I would advise at some points pausing this so that you can go away and also make sure that you know exactly how they sound. You will be doing that on Focus on Sound in a second, but please make sure that you do understand what they look like and how they sound by the end of this lesson. So if we're looking at the instrumentation from Indian Raga, the North Indian classical musical ensembles have only a handful of players. They aren't made up of lots of people like gamelan was that you saw recently. They're usually made up of a soloist, a percussion and a drone. So if we were to look at some of the melodic solo instruments that you could use, you could have a sitar, a sarod, a sarangi, an esraj or a bansuri. Now with each of those they have different characteristics. I'm not going to talk through them now because I've tried to lay it out quite simply on here. If you have any questions, please make sure to email me and I'll be going on to the next lot of instrumentation in a second. Pause the video now so that you can understand a little bit more about each of those types of instruments. Looking then at the percussion and the drone sections. So the drone instruments, the tampura is a string instrument, guitar, but has fewer strings. It only usually has 4 strings. I have seen it sometimes where it has 6, but it usually has 4, and it has no frets on it. So that is where you would be able to understand where to put your hand. Unlike the sitar, it really plays very simple and repetitive music. The harmonium is a reed organ, which has its keyboard on top and has a range of between 2 to 3 octaves. That's really quite limited if you think about how big a normal standard keyboard in Western music is. 2 to 3 octaves is very, very small. If we're looking at the tabla, this is now the percussion section of the ensemble. So the tabla are a pair of small drums placed side by side on the floor in front of the player. So they will often be there to often keep the beat, but sometimes they will interact with the soloist and then themselves have some short solos. Now, the smaller drum is known as the dayam, which means right, and it is tuned to the sa and it's played with the fingertips on the right hand. Hence why the dayam means right, you play it with your right hand, and it's quite high in pitch. The larger drum is known as the bayam, which means left, and it's played with the left hand, funnily enough, and it's played with the heel of the hand, which is pressed into the drum to change the pitch. Some strokes are often open, so they're allowed to ring and to sustain and carry on, and others are closed and they're dampened. Please pause the video now and make sure that you know everything that you need to about the instrumentation in Indian Raga. So your options then for the rest of this lesson are to either complete the lesson set for you on Focus on Sound around Indian Raga. Just a reminder that the website for the application is there. Please make sure to log in. If you have any issues, please get in touch with Miss Ogden as quickly as you possibly can. If you either can't access that or I've not got back to you, apologies in advance if that's the case. I'd like to create a poster for a Year 7 pupil on Indian Raga. I'd like it to be as detailed as possible, and could you please add some questions that they'd have to answer. Try and make it as interactive as you possibly can. What I'd like you to do is end the video now and use the rest of today's lesson time on activities 7.5 and 7.6. Thanks very much, everybody. Please make sure to subscribe so you see when the next video comes up, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.